Thank you, Dean Revez, and good morning. Good morning, and thank you to our families who fielded those frantic calls about grade curves and writing competitions and 8 papers when they had absolutely no idea what we were talking about. Good morning, and thank you to our spouses and significant others who most graciously chose not to leave us, no matter how many truly awful legal jokes and legal puns we told. Good morning, and thank you to our friends who, I'm only kidding guys, none of us have any friends left outside of law school. They're all right here. Most importantly, good morning to you, and thank you, class of 2013, you amazing, talented, brilliant, beautiful bunch of graduates. Congratulations. When you tell someone that you're in law school, there are always lots of questions. Some of those questions are fairly easy to answer. What kind of law do you study? Mostly the written down kinds. Do you study a lot? Literally all the time. Is it like Legally Blonde? It is exactly like Legally Blonde. Sometimes, occasionally, we get a question that's a little tougher to answer. How could you possibly want to be a lawyer? Oftentimes it's followed with the sympathetic nod of the head and the, but you seem so nice. Sometimes it's accompanied with a variety of colorful adjectives. Parasitic, blood-sucking, ambulance-chasing. Then, of course, there are the jokes, which by now we've all heard some variation or another of. What do you call 1,000 lawyers chained together at the bottom of the ocean? Good start. Shakespeare probably wasn't the first to say, let's kill all the lawyers, and he certainly hasn't been the last. In Spielberg's American opus Jurassic Park, the character of the attorney, in terms of likability, falls somewhere in between the velociraptor and the dinosaur who spits poisonous tar at his mouth. Our profession isn't the most popular one. We represent some of the most unpopular people. We represent the liable, the culpable, the guilty. Some of these people have some pretty nasty things to say. Sometimes the things that these people have to say are difficult for us to hear. Sometimes they just want someone, anyone to hear them. But without lawyers, these individuals would have no voice at all in our system. Whether they sit in a corporate boardroom or denied bail behind bars, it's our job as lawyers to make sure that these people are heard. When people ask me how I could possibly want to be a lawyer, it's because they misunderstand what lawyers do. We give a voice to those who otherwise would not have one. But I certainly don't have to stand here and preach to this class about how meaningful it can be to give someone a voice. During the past 3 years, this class has given voice to so many individuals who otherwise would have none. Your accomplishments fill the back pages of the hefty Convocation guide in front of you. Through the Unemployment Action Center, you gave a voice to those who lost their job. Through the Suspension Representation Project, you gave a voice to the young. Through the Domestic Violence Advocacy Project, you gave a voice to those most vulnerable. The habeas petitions you filed gave voices to immigrants detained indefinitely without hearings. Your clinical work gave voices to juvenile defenders, minority families, entire communities. And your amicus briefs made their way all the way up to the Supreme Court, representing voices that could not carry that far alone. You have seen how meaningful it can be to provide that voice to another, how, regardless of the outcome of a motion or a hearing or a trial, that act of giving someone a voice is meaningful alone. Giving a voice to others doesn't mean we have to sacrifice our own, though. We all came here with our own stories, our own voices. That's why we were offered a place here. Professor Schaefer gives a fantastic farewell speech to his criminal procedure class, and I'd like to butcher it for everyone here today. He told us that we should try and think back before we ever came to law school. Back when we first got that acceptance letter in that gigantic purple envelope. He asked us to remember how happy we were, how proud we were, how confident and sure of our own abilities and intellect we were. He promises us that someday the terrible wounds done to our ego by law school will heal. And that someday, somehow, we will feel that confidence again. And he's right. 3 years later, we're a little older, perhaps a little grayer, unfortunately a little bit rounder. But the only thing that's really changed is today we have a larger podium, a louder microphone. In federal courts, Professor Friedman forced us to read, blessed us. He blessed us with the opportunity to read from Hart's Dialogue. It's a fictional conversation between two fictional attorneys concerning hypothetical issues in federal jurisdiction. To think people criticize legal academia as impractical now. If anyone sees one of them sneaking up behind me, please signal. At one point, Professor Hart expresses a similar concern. Judges making unjust decisions based on unsound principles. Bad lawyers, bad judges. But he responds, they are only the custodians of the law, and not the owners of it. The law belongs to the people of the country and to the hundreds of thousands of lawyers and judges who through the years have struggled on their behalf to make it coherent and intelligible and responsive to the people's sense of justice. This law of ours is inherited. We inherit the statutes and the jurisprudence, but we also inherit a duty to make it better. If we're truly custodians of the law, like any good custodians, we've got some cleaning to do. This system of ours is dusty and dank, and in some places it's downright filthy. Let's break out the mop and bucket. Let's leave it lemony fresh. Let's leave it better than we found it. Class of 2013, it has been an absolute pleasure to call myself your classmate. It's a privilege to call myself your colleague. Congratulations.